Hey, okay, well, I thought today I would review something a little different from the kinds of things I usually look at on the channel. I have heard this video game described as the greatest scrolling fighter ever, from the greatest ever series of scrolling fighting games, certainly in the 16-bit era. Hell, I've even heard it called the greatest 16-bit era game of all time. I'm speaking, of course, about the one, the only, Streets of Rage 2, as it was known on the Sega Mega Drive in the UK, or Bare Knuckle 2, as it was called in the US on the Sega Genesis console. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth into the game, the genre, or the series of games as a whole here. The series was mainly developed for the US market because Sega Japan was fixated on a certain blue hedgehog at the time. But I am going to attempt to review it and my experience with it, which has changed over the years. Honestly, for the longest time I didn't really understand Streets of Rage 2. I played the first one in the 90s, of course, and loved it. But the second one just seemed like more of the same. After all, it's walking around beating people up. How different can it be? I think I borrowed Streets of Rage 2 from a friend, or maybe I rented it, and played a bit of it, and thought no more about it, really. However, it always stayed in the back of my mind. Now, I don't know whether it's the autism, but 8 and 16-bit era games usually just made me furious. In fact, to the point that I actually put my hand through the protective screen covering the front of my TV while playing Target Renegade on the Spectrum some years before. My memories of this era of gaming were of rage, of stress, and ultimately of failure. I was very bad at those types of games. Then, a few years ago, I realized that Mega Drive or Genesis emulators were available for the PC, as well as ROMs to play on them. Amidst a haze of angry memories, I thought, why not? I'd been looking at some reviews of Mega Drive games anyway, so why not give them a go? The first game I played was Streets of Rage 2, and frankly, my anger reached new heights. The screechy 16-bit voices, the continuous cycle of getting them knocked on my ass by a group of thugs, some of whom were laughing, and though I beat it eventually, virtually every time I played it, I ended up turning it off in sheer disgust and deleting the files from my system. A while later I downloaded them again, only to delete them after getting annoyed with the game again. I also played Fireshark, Strider, and particularly Robocop Terminator, which I remembered fondly from my youth, shall we say, as well as a handful of others. And this pattern would go on until I eventually got sidetracked with other things. Then, a few years ago, Streets of Rage 4 came out. I was never truly able to get Streets of Rage 2 out of my mind, so I checked out some footage of Streets of Rage 4. While the game looked very different, all the elements of Streets of Rage 2 were there. The character types, as well as Axel and Blades from the original, the fighting, the chaos, and of course, the musical element. I will touch on the music of Streets of Rage 2 in a moment, but suffice it to say, the music, for me, might well be the most important part of the game. It's the hook that keeps you coming back, in a way. Now, I have never played Streets of Rage 4. Frankly, some of the boss fights look like they would probably make me demolish the house, so I've actively stayed away from it. However, what I love about the footage that I've seen is the same thing that attracted me to the first game in the series, and indeed Streets of Rage 2. The graphics, yes, but also the character of it. The characters have just enough background to make them interesting, just enough moves to make them effective, and just enough swagger to make you feel cool while playing it. The enemies are just hard enough to make you fight them aggressively, without going over the top and wanting to torture them when you finish playing the bloody game, apart from the laughing and voice samples, which still irritate me, I have to confess. The bosses, though seemingly unbeatable at first, are perfect for a game like this, as it turns out, because they underline one thing above all: simplicity. Streets of Rage 2, a 16-bit fighting game, is not rocket science. Again, probably because of the autism, I always think things are more complicated than they are. I tend to look for complexity where little exists, and when I don't find it, it can be upsetting. Would that be the right word? Confusing, probably, would be closer. However, in this case, the simplicity constitutes absolute genius. The movesets are limited, but easy to pull off, and they're absolutely enough and absolutely effective. Yes, timing and perseverance are necessary. It's a video game, and a 16-bit video game at that. But when you accept the simplicity of this thing, it becomes nothing short of beautiful. From Axel's Rajumpa punch to Max's bone-crunching atomic drop that actually looks like it hurts, to the elegant chops and throws delivered by Blaze, and the arrogance of the way Skate performs his moves, everything here is exactly how it should be. Then, as I've stated hitherto, there is the music. Now, the music has been praised as being some of the best on the system. I would go further. Not only was it probably the best music on the Mega Drive, but there are few video game soundtracks today that can even compete with it. Now, the tracks do have names, but I don't know all of them. I know Expander is played in the moving platform section in Stage 7, but I don't know the names of the others. They also represent different genres within electronic music. There's some techno, some house, even some smooth jazz influences in there, all leading to an outro anthem that is both rewarding and sublime. Anyone who has played this game will have fond memories of the music, and for most, hearing one of the tracks again will transport them to the game, to the level in which the music was first heard. To paraphrase Kim Justice, if Expander came on in a club, it would be time to go absolutely ballistic, and I can't disagree with that. I would be dancing my arse off if I heard that one back in the day. The other sounds in the game, aside from the laughing and screeching, even those as well, are evocative of old martial arts movies like Fist of Legend starring Jet Li, and give you that B-movie feeling every time you pick up a joypad. Now, having said all of that, is the game perfect? Well, nothing, of course, is perfect, but this comes pretty damn close for the genre, the time, the system, and the state the technology was in back then. As I've said before, it's simple, but this doesn't have to be a negative. If you can accept this simplicity and don't want more from it than is there, then this is nothing short of a gaming masterpiece. Is it too easy? For some, perhaps. Not for me, not on normal or hard, but ease and difficulty are where you find them at the end of the day. If you can beat the thing on hardest with every playthrough, then all power to you. You may find it too simple. For everyone else, you are going to find some challenge here somewhere. As far as flaws in the gameplay itself and the presentation as a whole, I honestly can't think of any, aside from a few sound effects that may grate on the player depending upon their sensibilities. So, in summing up then, Streets of Rage 2 is a 16-bit triumph. Though Streets of Rage 3 was released sometime after it, followed by a fourth installment in recent years, nothing for me tops the second game in the series. The best 16-bit game of all time, the greatest that the Mega Drive ever had. In terms of quality and gameplay, I can think of no better, though I played more NHL hockey on the system than anything, particularly toward the end of the 16-bit era. From raging at the chaos to finding something close to perfection, this has been a journey, one that each of us who chooses to will tread differently, and, love or hate the game, one which few of us, particularly those of a certain generation, will ever forget. However, with all of the above being said, I thank you for watching this review of Streets of Rage 2. Please like, share, comment and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.